everyone, and welcome to Out on a Limb podcast with your hosts, Will, and myself, Allison, and Samantha. And again, we're just rocking these guests. I'm telling you, today we have the beautiful, just illustrious, this wealth of knowledge, Laura Eisenhower. Not enough good adjectives to even describe everything. But let me tell you a little bit about her background. She is a researcher, an author, a medical and intuitive astrologer. She's an internationally acclaimed speaker who has presented her work worldwide. She is the great-granddaughter of President Dwight David Eisenhower, and she reveals exopolitical information about his administration that has largely been held in secrecy. She's felt a calling regarding her mission since she was a child. Her passion is to inspire unity consciousness and bring us back to the 0 point, the unified field, to the totality of our divine powers. Now, she has, like I said, a beautiful mission. Her whole ancestral line is of the same mission and the same divine consciousness infusion on earth right now. It's powerful and fascinating. And I would highly suggest that you do some research. We're not going to cover all of that. There's way too much to cover anyway. So for the purposes of this podcast today, we're really going to talk about her expertise in the field of astrology, why that's important, some significant dates that are happening. What does that have to do with our ascension and all of this stuff? It's fascinating, good information for all of you. Lots of material to research, though, so do check out all of her websites and her information that'll be down in the description below. Yep. And look out for her book coming March 1st. Do you want to hold that up for us?
Up there.
Awakening the Truth Frequency. Gorgeous cover. Cannot wait to get hands on my own copy on March 1st. So check that out. I imagine it's going to be on Amazon. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay,
awesome.
Good. So, Laura, gosh, so thrilled that you joined us. Tell us,
So wonderful to be here.
you have a fascinating background of all kinds of stuff, but when did the astrological interest strike you? How did that come about in your life? At what point?
Probably high school. I was starting to delve into the I Ching. I was starting to do tarot. I was like, I need some help navigating this path. What the heck's going on? And wow, the I Ching was a really, really helpful thing. I did it so much. My mom's like, what is that? She thought I had OCD because there were hexagrams on all these pieces of paper everywhere. And I'm tossing the coins. And I don't have OCD at all. And then, tarot and just always an interest in the astrology, knowing my sun sign, knowing just a few of the basics, seeing just general horoscopes. I think I followed Brezhny, I think it's Robert Brezhny, just, in newspapers and this and that. And I knew there was so much more to it than what is your sun sign and just the general horoscopes. I'm like, what about the wheel? I mean, there's so much more. There's the moon, the sun, and all these other planets and the way they influence us. And I think it really started to gain my interest and how I got educated in the just realms of astrology after my kids were born. Because I'm like, okay, I really want to understand them. And I had their charts done. And it was a really just helpful thing to just sort of just know what their aspects were. And then I'm like, okay, I went about my sister and my parents and of course myself, right? But my birth time was never noted. I was born at home. So that was always frustrating. I'm like, come on, Mom, guys, come on. Don't you remember my birth time? And they were like 4 hours off each other. And you have to be real close because every 4 minutes is a degree. That it changes. So if you're a couple hours off, it's not going to be the same chart. So over the course of time, using pendulum and just getting to know the chart and getting to know myself, I've figured that it might be a certain time. And so just learning it and trying to understand the people in my life, especially people that were my boyfriends. I'm like, okay, all right. And then, okay, what about relationship charts? Oh yeah. Then I delved into relationship charts and I'm like, okay. And I remember bringing up to one of my partners, I'm like, it's not really looking so good for our bigger picture destiny there. And there's going to be a lot of strife and conflict I'm seeing. And I'm already noticing that that's happening with us. We really need to work on this, right? And he wasn't so willing. Like, oh, well, why are you being influenced by that? I'm like, no, we're not. It's just, this is the way to look at the greater patterning. So I got so interested in the medical part of it, like the medical astrology, how these aspects how the patterning of our natal chart, our progress chart, and the transits influence us in every sector of our life. But what about health? Because the planets connect with our organs, our endocrine system, and our chakras, and yeah, it just helped me to like heal instead of like going to the doctor, because I was just not feeling it with the medical world. So it was part of a tool to just help with healing and navigation and getting to know the people in my life. And then I realized, wow, I actually know how to read charts. Then I started doing it for friends. And they're like, you should do this and get donations. And then I went from landscaping into more mission, more public speaking. And then, during the day and just my daily work, that's what I do. I do readings for people. And you can book us on my website.
Yeah. Right off the bat, because of how you talked about, figuring out your exact birth time and how important that is. And I was debating with someone the other day about that, saying, okay, the doctor pulls you out and he could he could name any time he wants. He could wait until you've done your first cry. And then he says, okay, so we're going to say it's 6:56 or whatever. So, I mean, how much does that influence all of that? I'm sorry. You've got to set things.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a couple minutes off for people, depending on who has the pen. Maybe they went to the bathroom for 2 minutes, came back. Right. Who knows, right? I think like the minute, the baby comes out, somebody looks at then they write it down, and that becomes part of the birth record. And as long as you're like close, you want to be within at least 5 minutes, things will be, pretty accurate. It's not going to change that much. Anything more than 10 minutes, you're not going to get an accurate read, but you can still see, the patternings. It's just with knowing the ascendant, which houses the planets fall in and what the ruler of the houses are going to be. They're already naturally, like the first house is Aries, second house Taurus, third house Gemini, but based in your birth time, if you're born with Scorpio rising, that's going to be the ruler of your first house. So that's going to bring characteristics into your ego identity. Like a Scorpionic person, their appearance, their personality nature. And if it's square, they can be the stalkers and the scary Scorpios. And
we're both Scorpios, and we're not.
Oh yeah. No, I've got a lot of Scorpio too, not on the like that level. But this Scorpionic energy, is really intense, and it'll take a person into like plunging into the, the depths of the self and rebirthing and transforming. And if it's squared and there's difficult aspects, a person can kind of get blocked, and it can bring out obsessive tendencies. And just like with any sign, every sign has a shadow side, like Neptune, Pisces. The shadow side of that is self-undoing, addiction, being caught in illusions and projections on the self or the world that, because they're so caught in the, imagination. But when the imagination is haunted or infected with distortions or programs or traumas that haven't been resolved, it can really influence the way a person perceives everything and can create a lot of issues. So understanding the shadow side and working with a person to see kind of where they are with some of these aspects is very interesting, because not everybody's going to respond to certain aspects in the same way. Like a squared aspect, which is tension and conflict, for a person might victimize them, might keep them looping in a pattern. For somebody else, it could be a huge catalyst and a pressure that pushes them to like find their greater calling, and it just kind of depends when that breakthrough is going to happen to be able to like break free of some of the limiting patterns that are in a chart. So it's really fascinating. Yeah. And
I will vouch for you. I don't remember exactly when I found you, but it was probably somewhere around 2016, 17. And in 2018, I realized that you do the astrology. So for his birthday in October, in 2018, I gave him a reading with you. And then for whatever reason, I thought, you know what? It's really reasonable considering it's Laura Eisenhower giving me a reading. I think I'll get myself one too. So we bought a double back-to-back one, and you ended up doing the relationship one as well, which actually I thought I found more fascinating and valuable than the individual one. And you were spot on. I can look back now at 2018 at what you said. Everything was spot on. Up until this point. I mean, it was beautiful, and I thank you for that. But it's so funny that you brought up the time, because one of the questions I was going to ask is, somebody mentioned, because I'm not an expert on astrology, that people born before 1968 might be running their chart with inaccurate times due to daylight savings time. Oh, is that a thing? What?
Should correct itself in the system in the ephemeris based on the time that you were born and how that all works.
Okay.
It should correct itself. Yeah.
I was wondering about that.
And that gets really weird, right? So yeah. The things with calendars and all that has just been so thrown off, Gregorian calendar and everything like that. And I mean, I do Western, and I've seen my Vedic. I just resonate more with the Western just because I feel definitely like a Libra more than a Virgo, but I can see where the Virgo energy is. But then I look at my progress chart, and my moon right now is in Virgo, and the 8th house is like, is that why I'm like being just like so like, so that's what's awesome about seeing the progress chart, right? Because you think like you're always your natal chart, but we progress, we move into different energies as we go through different phases of life. So to kind of catch up with like, well, what's kind of currently going on, and with, you know, the influence of the transits, you know, it's helpful. So even if there are things that are slightly off, it'll at least give us something to work with. Now, I'm not like a math like genius person when it comes to trying to, you know, fix those kind of glitches or like how to kind of work around it. But, you know, I kind of intuit around it.
Mhm.
And like the 13th sign, like the sun started to move through the 13th sign in 2010. People are like, should I change my charts? Does that mean I'm a different sign? And what I've sort of intuited is if the sun started moving through the 13th sign in 2010, it would be the children born from 2010 and beyond that you would want to consider that. Everybody else will experience the transits. We're still impacted by it. We'll experience, you know, that part of the sun moving through the 13th sign from November 30th to December 17th. But, you know, we don't have to shift our natal chart. But it overlays between Scorpio and Sagittarius rather than, you know, taking up another quadrant of the pie. And that's really a very huge part of my book and presentations, is that element, that ether element coming in, which is helping us to awaken and purify. So that's a very interesting component that I've been working with and learning about.
So there's a natal chart then, which is your birth chart. And then you're saying there's a progress chart.
Yeah. And it's based in every day after you're born equals like a year. And the calculations are basically like, it's almost like we're born with like a seed, right? And you know, we sort of metaphorically speaking, we water the seed and the soil and it grows, right? Just like us, we're the seed, and we develop into what that seed's supposed to become. Well, in this sort of world, we're being sprayed on and stomped on, right? So that plant is just like, and so to understand like the dark technologies and the manipulations of the planet, like the Saturn moon matrix and the planetary grids being impacted, you know, we could see sort of the development of that plant, right? Going from like 4th house IC to midheaven. You know, how is that person sort of developing all these other qualities that are influencing that individual, the way they were raised, their early education, you know, a lot of star seeds, and you can just definitely tell, and those that are creating life events that'll awaken them. But like, were those early influences that are impacting that core seed that is wanting to, you know, just unfold organically into the fullness of all that you're meant to be. So in understanding that, you know, you can sort of see, you know, where there have been intrusions, and this is the sort of name of the game down here, right? So I feel like we're born into it like a gaping wound, and Chiron kind of shows like, where are your pain? Where are you hurt? And that's where usually our mission gets awakened, because that's where we're pulled into needing to process and overcome and heal. And the nodes, you know, kind of show us what energy signature did we come in with, and what are we seeking to integrate so that we can find wholeness and integrate polarity and get into that 0 point, so that we're not so influenced by the map and the patterns. We've been able to, you know, elevate ourselves and move on from the shadow sides and all the lessons that it brings, and move into the higher octaves of it till we're like feeling a certain sense of inner peace and neutrality. And we're not like constantly just being like, oh, you know, you're triggered again, or, you know, here comes another pattern. And yes, the planets are going to influence us, but when we're riding, you know, more of the higher levels or embracing the shadow work, when the shadow stuff comes in, you know, the intelligence of the cosmos is giving us everything we need to repair and heal and restore. And that's what nature is designed to do. But of course, the inverted matrix wants to leverage these planetary aspects and throw us psyops and false flags and things to, you know, cause us to give our power away and sink down into like survival and misunderstand the great initiations and ascension symptoms, and then freak out, and then, you know, constantly seek solutions that get us further away from the goal. And so, and all that can be corrected, but, you know, we want to correct it sooner rather than later, because as we know, with the last couple of years and what they've been throwing us, you know, it's getting pretty gnarly out there. It's been pretty freaking crazy.
to say the least, to say the least, for sure.
But I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think a lot of people feel like your chart is locking you into these set of characteristics that you can't escape from. And that's not what it's about at all. And it sounds like there's a place for the natal chart and the progress chart, I guess.
Yeah.
And
right.
It's like the guidance counselor chart. You should relate
I
to
guess.
that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I wonder, can you briefly explain the difference though, before we get too far away from what you said about there's Western and Vedic?
Yeah.
What are the major differences between?
Well, I was going to say my daughter she just discovered that. And she had like a crisis of, identity. She's going, oh, wait, because she knows all about her Libra-ness. And all of a sudden she might be this other thing. And she's going, I don't know what I am now, Mom. And I'm like, hun, ease up. Each goes, well, I got to choose one.
What's the
Anyway.
major difference?
Well, one's sidereal and the other one is like a different sort of house system. And yeah, so the sidereal star is based in the position of the planets, positions of the constellations.
Okay.
Which is different than like the Western, which is more about like the equinoxes and solstice, like more about the cycles.
Oh,
Right. So, I mean, it's helpful to know both because I realize in knowing both, there's aspects of myself that relate to the Vedic, but it's sort of almost like a different dimension, right? Like I find the Western is a little bit more like, okay, in the human realm and what I wake up to every day and how I feel in my psychology or in my personality or in my creative energy. But yeah, like bigger picture level, okay, maybe I'm a Virgo because I'm all about health and healing and I can see where those qualities come in and where, I've been working that energy. So I think it's like good to know both. So you don't want to necessarily, discard one for the other because we are here and we are experiencing the things that, the Western chart reveals, but we're also experiencing things that the Vedic chart reveals. So I think it's good to, know both.
so what's the fascinating?
Yeah.
The fascinating thing about astrology though is when you're in the ether and before you incarnate into a body, you're doing your contract and you're figuring out the mission and the things you want to accomplish. But in that, you're also not only picking your parents, but you're picking the time and place of your birth so that, in my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, so that you can then create the personality that will help you in that mission. Is that right? Is that how this works?
I definitely feel that. And, even if like the pregnancy was induced or you're premature, or like, all these things that seem to be like, was that really my choice? Did I really want that? I really do feel that there's, a reason for it. There might be a bit of a stumbling block and like, maybe, just like, were we meant to be programmed? I mean, it's a part of like what we're experiencing and it's all a part of whatever we're waking up from. So even if something doesn't feel like, did we really choose that? Like, did we really choose some of the events that happened in our life? Well, we were drawn to it for a reason to overcome it, override it, and be all the stronger for it. So yeah, as baby beings, I think we set it up like, hey, Mom, want to have a little bit more wine? Pod, like, Father, come over here. Like, it's a really good time for you guys to get up in the bedroom because I really want to come in. And like, I mean, how does it work? Who knows like how that all. I mean, that's the part of the greater mystery. And a show that I really love, a docuseries I really love, is called The Ghost Inside My Child. And these children have memories of being on the other side. And they tell their mom, like, oh, yeah, I came in, I came down a silver cord and right through your crown chakra came into your womb.
Aww.
And the kids are sitting there at the age of like 4 telling their mother this and recalling past lives even. Naming all the their stuffed animals, the name, like the same name of this past life, and then drawing pictures and having night terrors. And when the mom's like, and the father is, inquiring into it, the kid's like giving all this information. And then they find in the newspaper archives that the name and the event where that their child died actually did happen. Like a little boy was like, I was Pam, a African-American woman in Chicago, and I died in a fire. Right. So it's amazing how, and remembering coming in, like some of these kids have total recall. It's such an amazing show. And it like really just spoke so much about these kind of mysteries. And how the South Node, right, would show some of that imprint. So I would think a child like that would have a lot of planets around the South Node because the South Node is sort of like the energy signature you come in with. And if there's a lot of attention and a lot of planets on the South Node, you're probably going to have a lot more memory than others.
Oh, wow.
Because it's significant and important, right? Now, some people have more of a clean slate. They don't really care to remember, or their life isn't about going back into all that. But you notice certain transits. Like I notice when a lot of people are like, wanting to do past life readings, or they contact me, then they tell me, I just did a hypnoregression. A lot of transits are sitting on their South Node. There's an interest in diving into their past. So we do have the chart we're born with, then things progress. But we have transits that impact all 12 pieces of the pie of the chart. So, we experience the whole thing. And the whole deal is it's to rebuild the 12-strand DNA, because there's 12 houses, 12 signs, 12 strands of DNA that we come with a particular map. And if we can come together in unity consciousness, we help each other switch on the rest. And it holds all the elementals: earth, air, fire, water, ether. So if we can come together in unity consciousness instead of divide and conquer, we can help to breathe life into these dormant aspects. So even though we all have our map, we're going to attract people that hold other pieces of the pie we might not have in order to experience that part. So when we're in unity consciousness, we're like, whoa, we're like an ecosystem. You do this part, I do this part. We'd be spread too thin if we did it all. But as we're able to harmonize that, we can switch on these dormant levels and hold it in our consciousness, even though on a human level, we'll have our particular niche, that we're working with.
Huge goosebumps while you're talking about that. That was great.
Awesome. Yeah.
Well, okay. In my very simplistic terms, when clients are, I have some people who just say, and I do readings, mediumship, that kind of stuff. I do not, the most I get into astrology is Linda Goodman's sun signs. Back when I was dating, the relationship stuff. But when they would, kind of diss astrology, I'm like, oh, no. Like, my understanding and the way I'd always seen it, like how you were saying, was that that it's like you would come into this world vanilla, and if you didn't have these certain baked in characteristics, and so astrology starts you off with that. But yes, I see the complexity a lot more when you're describing all of this. It's like, whoa.
I know. Yeah. Some of those like just epiphanies would come. I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, just being tuned in, you don't really need to know your chart, right? It's just sort of like a flower grows, it does its thing, and then a biologist would study just like how that works, right? So it helps us to understand how things work. But like if you can intuit it, if you can, see it, then it's the same thing without the terminology, right? It's like a flower essence. You can understand the vibration and the frequency of it, right? Or the herbs and the qualities of what it'll do if you ingest it. But you don't necessarily need to know the biology. You might be more interested in just, right? So it's nice. It's just another tool to know. But just being tuned in is enough, because we don't want to be on autopilot. And as long as we're just in our intuition and we're mindful and we can experience things and know which thoughts are ours versus things that aren't, or what patternings are connected to outer authority that became our inner voice and became an insecurity when it was never really ours to begin with. It was conditioned into us. It's nice to know, oh, that's coming from outside of me that has now become a belief system about myself. But that's not, it didn't originate with you. And that's really Saturn, which on the higher octave level of Saturn, lower octave tyranny, control, and just the dark Saturn, like the the matrix cabal is very dark Saturn. The higher octaves of Saturn are self-mastery and becoming a teacher, because you overcome those limits and restrictions and obstacles, and you begin to be more in charge of yourself. What rules and disciplines or responsibilities do you want to connect with in your life that help you to thrive, versus the rules and responsibilities that might make you feel repressed or controlled or limited? You might take some of what you learned from authority, but where are you ready to branch away from it? That's where Uranus, the wrecking ball, comes in, and it's all about authenticity and truth. So like around pandemic time, we had Saturn square Uranus, and squares are conflict and challenge. And that was where dark Saturn's like, no, you can't wake up and liberate. You're going to do all they can to just put the controls on all of that. And a lot of the nodes that show growth period on a soul level around that time, North Node was in Gemini, like put that up, block all that, because they're afraid of the ether energy, because the fifth element is all about the breath of life. It's all about breathing. It's all about the mother energy and breathing in that unconditional love and ether to purify and cleanse those toxins out of our nucleic acids of our DNA and our elementals. And so they're so afraid of that, and they're amping everything up because this is a time of awakening. So that's where they leverage these planetary aspects and understand all of that in order to create a different version that will block those great initiations that are the ascension timeline.
Right. And as you said,
our divine blueprint to connect with. Yeah.
Exactly. And getting off of autopilot and get your head out of the sand and start paying attention to what's going on. But tell me, Laura, what the heck is up with Pluto? Everybody's talking about Pluto, and there was something about January 20th being.
Wait, first, is Pluto a planet or?
They consider it a dwarf planet. It's such a big energy that how can it be a dwarf planet? I mean, dwarfs, sure, whatever. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, January 20th, Pluto re-entered Aquarius.
What does that mean?
So Pluto re-entering Aquarius, it went retrograde for a while. Last year, it entered Aquarius for a little while, then went retrograde for a while. And it's actually going retrograde again for a little while again before it's going to be in Aquarius for 20 years, which is a long time. So entering Aquarius while Uranus is in Taurus, and Taurus is actually the opposite sign from Scorpio, Pluto, there's a lot of huge shifts and transformations happening. So Uranus and Taurus, the reason I mentioned Uranus and Taurus, which is happening right now, is because Aquarius is ruled by Uranus. So Pluto moving into Aquarius is a big shift into, yes, the Great Awakening, you know, because Aquarius, Uranus is all about authenticity and truth and higher mind and synchronicities and things that are much more about free thinking and liberation, rebelliousness, revolutionary kind of energies, and the things that like really break down control mechanisms and systems. So the Uranus in Taurus, though, Taurus has to do with self-worth and abundance, and knowing that our self-worth has been very targeted and indoctrinated by the matrix energy. Uranus in Taurus is helping us to redefine our sense of self-worth. So Uranus is putting a lot of people through a lot of breakdowns and conflict and strife and anxiety, because Uranus influences the nervous system. It's those downloads, right? And if you don't accept those downloads, you're going to be like, what's happening? You're going to be anxious because you're still following the control system, and you don't want all of that. So you might, just think, I need pharmaceuticals or anxiety medications, or I'm super depressed, when really you're going through an upgrade and activation. Or when you're really depressed, you're actually going into a dark night of the soul initiation and a rebirth, to embrace. So the medical industry doesn't look at that like, oh, what's going on? And maybe it's because of this. No, they're like, oh yeah, something's wrong with you. When really it's an appropriate response to the insanity of the world that we're in order to move through, what do we need to release and let go of, and where do we need to cut the cords? Because the cosmic intelligence in Mother Earth is guiding us to our awakening and recognizing the fullness of our capacity to heal ourselves, to be abundant in a very different way than what the money system and what the matrix has taught us. The whole punishment reward system, you got to get the good grades and do this in order to be successful. It's more, this deeper awakening. So Uranus, the wrecking ball, is tearing down our self-esteems to rebuild a new sense of self based in what our truth is. And Pluto into Aquarius is helping that. The North Nodes, which is the growth period, is in Aries. Chiron has been in Aries. And the Mars influence with Aries is all about the wounded ego, the wounded warrior. We're stepping into that. Can we look at that in an honest way? Where have our personalities, where have our ego identities been indoctrinated? Where have we been wounded by the betrayal of the system? Where have we been targeted? Where have we, fallen prey to the social media tactics to trigger us so that we join these like movements and we get further entrenched into divide and conquer? That's how they're leveraging that Chiron energy of like, ooh, everybody's wounded and raw. So everybody's taking everything personally, like, oh, you can't say that. Oh, you can't do that. And like, and then the gender reversals is all about, oh, people are waking up to their divine blueprint and integration of polarity. Let's confuse their gender when they're children, so they get sex changes before they're even reaching puberty. So we see like what's happening on an astrological level being completely inverted when it comes to this artificial timeline. And so the force, though, of this awakening is going to get so strong that people are going to like have the hard awakening of like, wow, I can't believe I went for that, or I bought into the bait and look what I've now done. Well, there's no fear in that. I feel, and you guys, we've had so many conversations about this, and your book is so incredible. And like, I asked you questions about this, and we were totally, like, of course, like your answers were just mind blowing. That we have the capacity to really alchemize and shift this as long as we get our minds back. Because the mind links into, what the antennas in our body link into the dark technologies and what's streaming through the media and our devices that hook us in. And as long as we can break that and get back into alignment, I really feel that the consciousness of the higher mind is then able to alchemize and remove these harmful substances and shift them into a different vibration. Because it's all about frequency. Like what has been in our food and our waters and in these things that have been put into our bodies, they create a response that impacts the mind and the emotions. So if we can override that and work on that with things like sound healing and some of these more advanced technologies that are going to come online, I really feel, people will be able to recover, but they have to cut the cords and have that first initial awakening of like, whoa, okay, yeah, that probably wasn't a good idea. But we've all had that in our life. Oh, maybe that substance that I've been taking for a long time wasn't a good idea. Maybe that toxic partner wasn't a good idea. We heal from that. We recover from that. And I remember watching Ripley's Believe It or Not. I'm like, they're eating light bulbs. Like they're doing all this stuff. Like, we is that really? I mean, we're learning to have mind over matter, and that spirit holds dominion over physical matter.
Yeah.
And that to me is,
I'm so glad you brought that up, because we were doing a channeling of, I think it was Metatron the other day, and he said something so profound, which was humans were never meant to be controlled. Polarity, yes, but control, no. The weakness of the human is the mind. And if you don't gain control of your own mind, someone will control it for you. So I can't stress how important it is. I'm glad you brought that up, that we have got to stop with allowing other people to control our minds, take control, get our head out of the sand, and get off autopilot. I love that. Thank you. What about, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, and that's I'm just like a book like yours, that's really gonna, it holds those kind of codes or frequencies that, just it's such a guidebook and such a help. So
Thank
I
you.
just love the book. I'm so honored that I
hold it up so people know what we're talking about in this particular.
That would be that one.
Sorry, but yeah, sorry. What was your question? I just wanted to just say thanks again.
That's why we were so blessed that Laura wrote the foreword for that so beautifully. We appreciate that. But let's shift gears and talk about eclipses, because that's another profound thing happening. I guess there were 3 across the US in the past few years that are significant. And there's another one coming in, I guess, April or 2, something like that. Tell us, what's the significance of eclipses and what's happening this year?
So a lunar south node eclipse is happening March 25th, and that connects with the nodes. So the lunar south node is in Libra. And the eclipses really bring our attention to, the deeper soul journey, like really just like something might like happen. Because there's the energy of, the sun and the moon and how all that like kind of works with, the eclipses. It just puts the attention on, like almost stepping away from life for a moment. Like what is coming to your attention? Something connected to the nodes. So if there's an eclipse with the emphasis on, South Node and what's coming up, March 25th being a lunar eclipse, we're looking at that South Node energy. So for a lot of people, it might mean like, okay, I'm really ready to break up with this person, because South Node is something we're reflecting upon. Libra has to do with relationships, balance, harmony, peace, justice. Where are the scales off in your life? So a person might like have a real need to make a lot of changes, because the eclipse energy really lasts for about 6 months, whereas like new moon, full moon, it's like from month to month, like it influences us. We kind of plant seeds in the new moon and it comes to fruition with the full moon, and eclipses last for a lot longer, and how they shake things up and change our lives. So so there's that one, and then a solar north node eclipse in Aries, which is the opposite, 2 weeks later on April 8th. And so that's going to help us to look at, where do we need to stand our ground? Where are we not taking action when we reflected upon the relationships we might need to change, or the things within us we need to change about the way we deal with people? The shadow side of Libra is very often people pleasing and often a doormat, or like easily, take advantage of, because you want everybody to be happy and you think of yourself last, or you make everything about your relationship. But, what about you, right? So North Node's like, that we're being encouraged to step into more with it near Aries. Where are you wounded, by certain relationships? Where is your ego wounded in general? Where do you need to find more balance? Where do you need to speak up more? So those kind of themes are going to be lighting up until we move into the later eclipse season, where it begins to fall on South Node Virgo, North Node Pisces. And that'll be the integration of polarity between the unseen realms of Neptune, Pisces, which is all about the creative imagination, the multidimensional, the unconscious, the astral, the dream realms, solitude, self-reflection, but also addiction, self-undoing, and delusions in its shadow. North Node Virgo, wait a second. North Node Pisces, South Node Virgo, we're going into Piscean energy to look at that just like what's in our unconscious, in our dream realm, what are our visions and dreams, reflecting upon Virgo, our health, our physical health, because our physical health and that integration of polarity shows what is in our unconscious or in the patterning that has impacted our physical health and has hurt it. Where do we have disease and where do we need to make lifestyle changes? Well, when we step into Neptune, we can begin to see, are those belief systems or those delusions actually hurting my body? Maybe some propaganda or some controlled religion or something, a belief about yourself. Like, where is your physical body like in dis-ease? So that's the integration of polarity that the nodes are going to help us with. And with, just the ramifications of a lot of the things we've been ingesting and being blasted with, I think it's going to be a huge growth period for us to look deeper into, what's really going on with our physical health and what can we do about it. And then we go into next year where Neptune moves into Aries. There's going to be more about the ego identity, being able to access the multidimensional and begin to be more of the spirit warrior and more like, all right, now let's take action as a human race. What are we going to do about it? So it'll be more about like, like healing centers and the Pluto and Aquarius, beneficial technologies, more disclosure. And I feel a lot more accountability to the cabal and the deep state and the criminal activities, because people are going to be like reflecting on their health and looking into what is the root reason. They're going to notice belief systems. I believe that was a good idea, and that has infected your creative channels and your creative energy. And so the exploration of all that to then, be able to purify it and shift it through shifting your belief systems and moving more into your creative imagination and what you can manifest for yourself as a sovereign spiritual being, I think will wake a lot of people up.
Looking forward.
Well, and I keep hearing 2025 is going to be like that golden year. Like there's so much goodness coming into it. I mean, it's still,
I feel that.
light and dark and all that, but
happening. And then, then it's going to be like, all right, now we're equipped to know what to do. Yeah. And you, I mean, like people like you and like a lot of people have already been already holding the resources and the tools and the guidebooks for all of this. But, I think a lot more people will be on board and it won't be such a sort of like conspiracy thing or woo woo or alternative or over there. It'll be like taking like more of a center stage.
So the important thing is coming up at March 25th and April 8th. It's going to be like a 1-2 punch reality check that, get yourself ready for that one.
Strap in and hold on.
Is there anyone that avoids, or is that kind of a world pattern kind of thing happening?
It hits all of us. It hits us all in different ways, depending on, where it is in your chart. Mm-hmm. And then Saturn Neptune conjunction is also going to be a thing. It's going to be more of a conjunction next year, but that's going to be like where Saturn likes to squelch our dreams and give us the reality checks. We're all like, oh, I'm going to create this and I'm going to do that. And then reality check, oh, but you still got to do this. You still got to answer to that.
I don't like that.
Like, how can we like shift into like the law of structure, which Saturn represents, to be a container for the multidimensional in our dream realm and not let it, those reality checks cause defeat or cause us to give up or make us depressed. Like we have to just kind of work, with the law of structure of Saturn in order to be able to, contain that, so that Saturn Neptune stuff will, really help. Because if you notice, water signs are opposite earth signs. So our psychic realm and our, what we tap into and feel intuitively has a lot to do with what actually manifests on earth. And then air is opposite fire. What we think inspires us to take action and that fire element. And so integrating all of that and having, the different aspects hit these different parts of our charts, it's like all these different alignments are the earth body repairing itself. Overcoming cataclysms and exploded planets. So the Venus transits and just the precession of the equinoxes and just where we are in this ascension cycle after 26,000 years, it's like the earth, is holding, its own like healing of the planetary grid network. And are we a conduits of that? Is that happening within our own physical vessel as well? Are we allowing, the false parent and the inverted matrix that overlaid itself upon the grid network and invaded all of this? Are they going to dictate our reality? And that's where the Saturn Neptune forces are going to like also create a breakthrough. moving out of those stuck belief systems that are putting you on a trajectory that is like literally overtaking your ability to dream and envision a future for yourself. It's where outer authority is telling you what the future is and what the now is, right? So it's like, how can we anchor a reality that's like heaven on earth, that's new earth, that's ascension, so it's going to take a lot of willpower. And so with the Chiron square, it's like, look at your wounds, and instead of giving your power away in the face of it, get to know yourself better and who you truly are. And that's what this year looks like.
Yeah, that
Until
theme of
next year's going to be
healing.
the better one.
Yeah, that is the thing. And I just look, again, I don't understand all of this, but every client I've seen, it's been, you need to heal. Like it's just healing
It's time.
Well,
So where-
everywhere.
It's taking ownership of your healing.
Right.
I mean, you can work with clients and say that there's healing that needs to be done, but the client has to take that ownership. And if they don't feel as if they're taking that ownership, well, then there's nothing more
keep getting a smackdown.
Right.
Yeah.
You can't keep smacking them. They've got to take that ownership. And for the ones that truly do take ownership of that healing, it is an amazing transformation. We've seen it over and over again of how that just really beautifully unfolds for them. So
Laura, where are we on the ascension timeline in your viewpoint?
Yeah, well, definitely, it's just kind of a personal thing, but it's, kind of hard because you can be like super awake, but the empathic thing, I think, really gets to a lot of us. I know it does with me. It's sort of like, when you're just feeling, just the heaviness of it all, or just, you can kind of like unplug, of course, and that's incredibly important. Just shut it all down, and check in with yourself. Where are you at? Yeah. Probably like definitely, feeling, the good energy of ascension. But yeah, you begin to switch everything back on. It's just like, oh my God, like I can't even believe, like I watch a few crime documentaries. I'm like, oh my God, there's like 12 seasons. So like I'm like, we get headlines, but there's like hundreds and hundreds of stories, thousands of stories. We get a few headlines, but I'm like, there's 12 seasons and that's just one of them. And I'm like, and then I go on and I do a search. And I'm like, there's even more. And I like the ones that are, like happy stories where the kidnapped kid returns home, to their family. I mean, it's just devastating, this world, the reversal technologies that have impacted the masculine and feminine, how, humans have been so weaponized and how their true traumas are not fully addressed, and all these pharmaceuticals and how they make things worse. It's like, oh, because he's off his meds, and that's, then some horrific crime happened. I mean, it's just insanity. So that's not looking so good as far as organic ascension timeline. And after, the latest wave of psyops and all that, there's going to be even like worse cases. I'm like, I don't even want to see like the docuseries that are going to come out of like the next level of people not behaving in high integrity kind of way, where, sacred union and these crimes of passion and these sort of things are just like off the freaking hook. I mean, that doesn't look so good, but that is that world. And that is the unresolved world of things not really being addressed. We need rehabilitation of every power structure. I watched the world's worst prisons, where this guy, goes to these prisons and spends time in them because he was wrongly accused and was in prison for 12 years and then cleared his name. So he goes to these prisons all over the world and experiences them. I don't know if you've seen it. It's amazing. But there's one prison in Norway that rehabilitates the prisoners and treats them with respect and dignity.
Imagine.
And they don't reoffend. They have the lowest rate of being reoffenders because they're not treated like animals. They're not treated like, they're really addressing these issues. And so we have a long way to go to turn everything around.
Wow. Yeah.
If there's only like one or two prisons doing that, and there's just, hospitals everywhere and what's going on and not enough. So in the rise of like detainment and being incarcerated, being rehabilitation, if they have mind control technology to turn you into an assassin, from a good person into an assassin, I think you can use that same technology to turn a criminal into a good person. So can we get these technologies into the right hands and begin to really rehabilitate and have, frequencies blasting through our towers that are light and love and like 482 and 532 hertz and, and really just, it's like all that technology is there, but it's used to hurt us. And there's got to be a shift in where, the structures that remain can turn around so it actually helps us. Yep. And that it can be more funded to provide the resources of these, better ways to help the people that are, seem to be very far gone. Now there's that timeline, right? Which I think is, as I see this bifurcation, there's the bridge between the two splitting timelines and one in the middle of those that are still willing to be in service and do all they can to see if we can rehabilitate, this 3D madness, insanity. But some will go down a road where it's just like, gotta just move on. It's just too much. They might be called to just go to a higher category earth or somewhere else, and maybe even, lose the physical body to do that, or maybe just go off grid and go into a community to do that. And then we got, the phantom earth, and like maybe, those that are really being assimilated into the transhumanism. But I do see the middle one, which is the one I think we're on, a lot of us, to do all we freaking can to bring about real disclosure and reminders of what ascension really means, to help bridge them over to a much, much better world. So I feel that that split and that bridge and that middle ground is still kind of happening, but that's just what I'm intuiting. I don't know if you guys.
I hear that and I'm just like, I just want to go to, the right. I want to break. I just want, you said something, and honestly, it never occurred to me. And how simple is the concept? You were like, if they would just take the towers and like put that good frequency through them.
How easy.
Why aren't they doing that at schools? Like, why? Like, that's such a simple concept that did not, the whole frequency thing. I'm newer, like I understand it, but I'm newer to all of its applications. I think of it more like, personally, how, listening to this helps me feel better. But
there was a drastic shift in, and I forget what the time period was, but there was a drastic shift in our musical, music, that shifted away from, what was it? 432 to 440. That small frequency range that it shifted to 440 completely distorted the effects of the music that we listen to. When it's in the 432 frequency range, it doesn't matter
resonates
what
more
the
in the
music
body.
is. If it's all based in 432 frequency, it resonates with the human body in a way that it's beneficial.
Wow.
In 440, it takes the beneficial effects away.
Some good videos about that if you guys want to check that out.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I have two things I want to cover before we have to let her go. I understand that the United States birth chart, the natal chart, was in 1776, as we know, but it's important now because it's cycling back around or something. What can you tell us about that?
I'm sorry, what's cycling back around?
The U.S. birth chart from 1776, the natal chart from then, coming back into importance for something. I don't know why.
Yeah, Pluto returns. Right. So the last time Pluto returned to the United States was 1776. So yeah, Pluto always creates sort of like a death crisis and a transformation. And
okay, it's starting off good.
Yeah, just kind of like when we face death, we let things that don't serve us die, and we are reborn within the same vessel. If we're not willing to do that, we manifest our own physical death to be able to reflect and see a much larger picture, and what lessons we missed and need to like learn, and where do we need to go in order to like pick up where we left off and what we didn't quite get, if we want to inhabit a human vessel and experience what it's like to advance that human vessel, or move on to something else. I don't know. But yeah, just so Pluto returning, Pluto moving into Aquarius, it's just Revolutionary War, and now people talk about the possibility of civil war and being split up into different like the states just separating somehow, and like all this kind of stuff. I don't know what it's going to look like. Honestly, I don't know what the election is going to look like. I'm not really good at predictions. I can only just point out like the patternings and the possibilities, and where are the highest possibilities that we can stay in alignment with, and be aware of the other things, just to be prepared, of course. And I think it's no news to anybody that we've always needed to kind of be prepared for, things, just being, shut down, and just making sure that we got enough food, we got enough supplies. We're pooling our resources together. We're coming together as a community, and we're, doing, all that we can. But it represents a transformation. But any transformation, if it's lodged in and stuck in the birth canal, and it's kind of stuck, it's like, then the possibility of death and a lot of casualties, you know, would happen. But we want to complete the cycle so we can be like, oh, we are rebirth nation. You know, we cleared all this. We brought everything to light. You know, all this plutonic energy is like, you know, helping us to go into that dark night of the soul as a nation and come out the other end all for the better. You know, so the most important thing is that we keep ourselves in check when it comes to the divide and conquer, that we don't let the political landscape impact our connections and our relationships. You know, even if you have to love them from afar, let's still maintain love and forgiveness and acceptance and compassion, because that's the one thing they want to take away from us. And the most vulnerable, you know, people that just they're not ready for the rabbit holes are going to have a really tough time, and they are going to get caught up in the duality part of it. But if we can like lead by example and just hold the love and pierce through the programs and just talk to that person's soul, then we can just let the outer noise be quiet for a while and remember the priority of like love and unity and community and focusing on our children and bettering our partnerships and friendships and letting go of like the jobs or careers or toxic people that don't work in our lives anymore, you know, and loving them from afar as best as we can. That is the best way to kind of move through this plutonic energy.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Wow.
So many nuggets: staying out of fear, staying in alignment, being prepared, but not from a place of fear, and bridging the divide. Don't let all of these things divide us further, but bridge those divides. That's beautiful. One other thing I wanted to ask, and I'm going to read this because I'm curious what your thoughts are. This was in a book that I read called UFO of God, which is fascinating. And it's speaking of the time just around Easter of 2026. And it was a light being talking to this man who had had these UFO experiences, but they were light beings. And the Divine Mother told him, when the red star of Regulus aligns just before dawn in the gaze of the Sphinx, a new knowledge shall come into the world. What does that mean to you? Does that make any sense to you?
What's the date?
Easter of 2026. The red star of Regulus aligning just before dawn in the gaze of the Sphinx.
That's something good thing. I'm not, you know, quite sure. Maybe, you know, it signifies the healing of the Orion Wars, you know. Regulus is connected to Rigel. If it's connected to Rigel, it's connected to the Orion constellation. And, you know, the pyramid technology went offline when all these cataclysms took place. So, you know, when we look at the repair work on a larger level, you know, in the pyramid connecting to, you know, these star systems and how Orion, you know, closed off its gateways to just be, you know, a high civilization that fell into like the duality and the Orion Wars, and then the resistance and the Black League and the Sananda Kamara and the connection with Venus there. It's like, you know, maybe that just shows, you know, the healing of, you know, these wars that have really stepped down into the physical plane. That's just what I'm intuiting, but I don't know.
Fascinating. Is there any?
But that was
I will say, as you were bringing that forward, I mean, I got lit up. A solid hit on that, because that just really connected. Now, I don't understand all of it, but just the truth that was in it really hit home. I mean, so it does sound as if in that 2026 time period, there could be some reckoning, or, you know, some further alignment of truth that does come out through all that.
Yeah,
So
a new knowledge shall come into the world.
Yeah.
Is there anything else astrological that's happening around Easter of 2026 that you're aware of?
I'm not quite into 2025, but I think the Saturn-Neptune conjunction might be around then.
Yeah, I know I'm catching you off guard. I was just curious if there was anything right on the top.
No, yeah, no, I think that's around that time, and that's really significant. So Saturn Neptune will be in the final degrees of Pisces in 2025, 2026, and I think that, yeah, that's really tight, or really connected around June of 2025. And so it's going to be like around Easter time, you know, really connected. And I think that's like super significant. And the fact that it's going to be in Aries, right? So Aries, after having the North Node in Aries and Chiron, and then the North Node moving into Pisces, and then the Saturn element, it's like, and Saturn holding the law of structure. And we've been dealing with dark Saturn that's trying to squash and infect our creative channels. The warrior spirit that has been healing this whole year and waking up, hopefully, will be able to be like, okay, there is this heaven on earth, because Neptune would be like the multi-dimensions, the higher dimensions. Saturn would be like the container, the physical, the authority. Now, is authority in the hands of the divine, or is it still in the hands of controlled religions and unholy wars and all these things that are trying to have control over those belief systems? Have we achieved what we needed to when Chiron was in Aries on the North Node? Did we reflect upon the imbalances and the injustice with the South Node Libra? So, it very much is determined on each person and what their willingness is. But the thing is, regardless of gauging it and what the collective decides to do, as long as we do it within our own soul, we can trust the trajectory that we're on. Whether we don't make it in this physical plane or not, our soul will go to a next level of something way better than this crap if we continue to do the work.
I have one more question for you. The collective was just talking about Planet X, Nibiru, and they said it wasn't really a planet. It was what did they call it?
You're looking at me like I know.
No,
It was the Anunnaki created this thing.
Yeah.
It wasn't a planet. Does that have any influence on us? In terms
I heard it was exploded a long time ago, and it's just not even close to what it used to be, and it doesn't have just as much of an influence as we would think. When people talk about the Anunnaki returning, I mean, I think, there's the fallen aspect, the factions that, just became the controller agendas, the Sons of Belial, the Black Suns, and the Luciferian Covenant, and Enki and Enlil kind of stuff. But, as we heal, don't they heal? Because if they've influenced us and tried to control us and we break that control, what does it leave them but to need to, redeem themselves somehow? I mean, I think it's all linked, because we do carry patternings and inheritances like we do from our biological parents, but we can take it to the next level. We don't have to be that alcoholic father or that victimized mother or whatever the dynamic was in our lives. I'm not talking about my parents, but whatever patterning they have, like high strung, like heart issue, whatever. We take it to the next level, right? So if the lower pantheons or the lower creator gods, we inherited something from our DNA has been messed with, and it has to do with Nibiru and it has to do with Anunnaki. When we heal and recover from it, it could potentially help what has been fallen, be redeemed back into the Christ Sophia, right? The fallen Luciferian energies being, restored, because Ophiuchus used to represent the fallen angelics and Enki, but now it represents the unconditional love of the mother that helps the fallen aspects that have impacted the planetary grid network to then be healed and recover and rise again. Because what is fallen can rise again. We fell as a humanity from Tara, but we're not fallen. We're advanced humans that are learning to wake up, and that's how we rise to the occasion. And so I feel that that those pantheons can be restored because they are linked into us, but we have to bring it back into the unified field, back to the cosmic trinity where they originated within ourselves, so that the earth responds to us. And what we experience in the outer world is the healing of certain species and races, because like your book talks about, it's all like in the bigger picture, they're all trying to repair themselves eventually, but we're at different places of the timeline. So your book is so significant to answering this kind of thing. And I would just see Nibiru as sort of just kind of like a space, like almost like a ship, and it's part of Marduk and exploding the planets and being in competition with source energy to begin to dismantle the divine blueprint in order to put seals and fences in and encase the planet in it to be the controller gods that have influenced and distorted religion. And once we break out of it, I think they're redeemed. But to look at them to save the day, or or that they're bad or they're returning, let's just like do that within ourselves, so that we're not just like looking for the doom or gloom or the savior. And that's why like your book and a lot of what other people are doing are really going to snap us out of all that. Doesn't mean that it's not happening though, but I do feel Nibiru has been completely dismantled, doesn't have the power it has before. And I believe it was like every 36,000 years, like the orbit or something. And some say that's wrong, but what damage it did and what ended up happening when we sunk down into this lower harmonic universe brought all these other planets into existence. There weren't as many planets. So we're working with, more of a fracturing of the cosmic trinity into many different archetypes, that all play kind of a different role. Some of them are warring with each other, some are holding domain in the underworld. Some are, guiding us back into, and these are all aspects of ourselves and all these archetypes within ourselves to get back, I feel, to the true source cosmic trinity where it all originated, where none of them are battling and duking it out and fighting and cheating on each other and killing, and all these different things that are kind of being played out and still worshipped, in some of these, covens and Illuminati families to keep those dynamics alive, because it keeps us divided and conquered, even though they war amongst each other. But a lot of them had to, again, join forces and alliances, realizing that, we're waking up and it's not worth it to battle each other. They better come together, but there's still, I think, a lot of battles going on within all that. I don't have a lot of insiders, and I'm not that privy to it, because Eisenhower's not part of the bloodlines of the Illuminati, thank God. But
yeah, but we are, like you said, we're all evolving. And as we rise, everybody else is rising, creating that beautiful Trinity again. Thank you.
And that we need to keep looking inside of ourselves for the saving. Like, remember there was that movie, Waiting for Superman or whatever, about the school system and all that kind of stuff. And I remember hearing that. It's like, no, we have to, each individual person has to do the work. Has to choose to do it.
Well, Laura,
and what,
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and people find in my book too a lot about Eisenhower's administration, that new information that we haven't heard before, that is very promising about the benevolent beings that he worked with and that are here with us. And so I just wanted to say that, but I know we got to close.
No, I'm so excited about that. I cannot wait to get that in my hands. I want all of you guys to run out and get that, because you'll learn a whole lot more. And it's a beautiful lineage that you're a part of, and your mission is beautiful. And we thank you so much. I want to honor your time. So thank you for spending this last hour with us and with our viewers. We greatly appreciate it. And we will have all of her links in the description, so that you can run out and get the book and also get a reading, because they're so worthwhile. And I think they're very reasonable, to be honest with you.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed being with you guys today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Laura. And thanks to all of you for watching Out on a Limb. Until next time.
See you guys.
Bye.